Welcome back to Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. And of course, football is back. Football is back. Football is back. The Rams and the Bills started us out. Of course, the first half was all tied up. And then the end of that, and oh boy, the Bills just took over. But of course, we do want to talk a little football. Of course, Thursday night football, and of course, a little bit AFC South. And of course, I would like to bring in someone that has great knowledge of NFL football and probably has forgot more things than I remember. I want to thank you again for coming on, Mr. Jim Trotter. What's going on?
What's up, bro? I'm trying to get my ear pods here connected, hopefully to make the quality of it better for you. So, you got me now?
Yes, sir.
Good. Okay. I'm doing well, Mike. I appreciate you having me on, man. It's always a pleasure. So, just got back home after the game last night in LA. Try and catch my breath for a minute, get ready for the weekend, and then head up to Seattle on Monday to see that Monday night game.
Wow, that ought to be interesting. Russ and the return.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, of course, last night was a return to the field for the Bills because the Bills have definitely been stewing over the ending of last season. Of course, they took it out on the Rams, especially in the second half. Of course, even in the first half, second half, went ahead and took care of business. Um, did looking at the Bills, I mean, did you expect that kind of spread going into that game in terms of the final score?
No, I'm not going to say I expected that spread, but I'm not surprised they won at all. I was having this conversation with a good friend of mine a couple of days before the game, and he's big on the Rams and thinks they're going to repeat and whatnot. And I'm like, I don't think so. And it's nothing against the Rams. Look, there's a reason that no team has repeated since 0304, and that's because it's hard. You know, you are everybody's Super Bowl on Sunday, and so when you look at the Buffalo Bills, for me, when I look at teams at times, I know people like to get into numbers and analytics and all of this, but sometimes for me, it's just a vibe about a team, where you can feel something is different. And so when you looked at the Bills, the fact that they had gone to the playoffs 3 straight years, they had gone to the AFC Championship game 2 years ago. They were 13 seconds away from going last year before they couldn't, hold off Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Um, there was an edge to them and an urgency to them in the offseason this year and in training camp. And in fact, one of their executives was telling me last night, he said, you could feel it during practices when our ones would go against the ones. There were times we would start to have fights and it got personal. And he said, but it never carried into the locker room. But there was just that edge because everybody still had a bad taste in their mouth from what happened last year. And so when you look at a team like Buffalo that's as talented as it is, and then it goes out and it addresses its area of need, its biggest area of need, which is an edge rusher, a dominant edge rusher. Because what do? You ask yourself, if we had had a Von Miller for those 13 seconds against the Chiefs, would we have lost that game? And of course, there's no way to know, but the likelihood is that you probably would not have because he is such a force on the edge. And he goes out last night and shows everyone why his addition was so important because he not only performed, but he elevated the play of those around him. And that's a sign, obviously, of a great player.
Definitely is. Definitely is. Now, of course, you addressed talking about the addition of Von Miller. I was definitely going to talk about that. But of course, the subtraction of Von Miller was very evident on the Rams defense. I mean, besides Aaron Donald getting some pressure occasionally, there was nobody really getting pressure. And, I wonder if that's going to be something that kind of lingers with them the rest of the season. And one guy in particular that, I think needs to step up and be the guy to bring pressure on the edge is Leonard Floyd. And
Yeah,
he was
look,
nowhere to be, he was nowhere to be seen in the game.
well, there's a reason they went out and got Vaughn at the trade deadline last year because Leonard Floyd wasn't giving them what they had hoped for, right? So losing Vaughn, no question, hurts them defensively. The other thing last night, they weren't getting pressure in part two because Josh Allen was getting the ball out so quickly. And typically that hasn't been his game. His game is to look for the big play. He's so big and strong that he can sit in the pocket if he chooses, and deal with some of that rush coming at him. But last night the ball was coming out so quickly, and what he did is it was kind of like a boxer. It was jab, 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 and then boom, hit him over the top a couple of times. So to me, the Rams, what last night showed are several things. Number one, not playing in the preseason and then being matched up to open against a really talented team exposed them a little bit. As they said to me after the game, in years past, even though they didn't play their regulars in the preseason, they didn't play opponents this good. So they could struggle in that opening game but still win it. That wasn't the case last night. Number two, the retirement of Andrew Whitworth at left tackle was extremely noticeable. Joe No Boom, he got exposed last night against Vaughn and that pass rush. And the thing Sean McVay acknowledged just afterwards, he said it's not like they were rushing 5, they were rushing 4 and getting pressure on us. So that's a problem. The other thing I think they missed was OBJ. He was a guy that by the end of last year in the Super Bowl had really started to understand his role in that offense, how he fit. They understood how to use him. You look at last night, Matthew Stafford kept falling back on looking for Cooper Kupp. They never got Allen Robinson involved. I think he only got 2 targets. So these players that they lost and the new players who have come in, it's going to take time for them to adjust. And all of those things came together last night where that was simply a bad week 1 matchup for the Rams.
Definitely was. Now, of course, another guy that people have mentioned in terms of not necessarily the greatest game out of the blocks is Jalen Ramsey. Now, of course, he is known to be boisterous, to be borderline cocky. And last night he kind of wasn't necessarily the greatest game for him against Stephon Diggs, especially on the long 53-yard touchdown pass where people are kind of debating what the kind of coverage they were playing, and he was looking over at his safety. I mean, is there a sense of concern there perhaps? Because this kind of happened a little bit in the Super Bowl as well with him and T. Higgins going against T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. So is there some kind of sense of concern that maybe he's not as great as he once was potentially?
Well, look, he made some comments after the game that he would like to see more man coverage, more press coverage. But here's the problem in that. If they do that, man coverage, as you know, press coverage requires you to have a pass rush that's going to get there. Because no matter how great you are, you're not going to stay with these elite receivers all day if there is not pressure on the quarterback. And right now, the Rams, at least last night, showed that rush was not getting there. So he's got to be careful what he asks for. The other thing, look, the Rams played a lot of zone last night too. And Jalen complained about that to some degree. I shouldn't say complain, but expressed some concerns about when you have a mobile quarterback like Josh Allen, when he breaks out, it compromises your defense. And I'm saying it shouldn't, because if you are playing zone, you are playing a space, not a man. And so you are looking for people who are coming through your space, and you should not be reacting to the quarterback scrambling unless he passes the line of scrimmage. Those are just fundamental zone concepts. So people don't realize Jalen got beat a few times last year, but the pass rush was such that it covered it up. The quarterback didn't have time to make that throw. So what we saw last night is that if that quarterback, particularly an elite quarterback like Josh Allen, has the time, and you have a receiver like Stephon Diggs, who is tough to handle, the cornerback's going to struggle, even one as good as Jalen Ramsey. But to your point, yes, it's time for him to elevate his game.
Definitely. I had a few discussions about his coverage last night, and of course, I think he'll look at the film and rebound because he is a great player. So that's just
Absolutely.
me thinking outside of that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so yeah, definitely some mirror moments coming for the Rams this next few days. But of course, this is the AFC South show, touring the AFC South. So I do want to dabble in a little bit of AFC South talk, if you don't mind. We're going to start with the division champs, which are the Tennessee Titans. Now, of course, everyone is talking about, Ryan Tannehill and how's he going to look and things like that. But of course, people are talking about the wide receiver room. You lose A.J. Brown, you lose Julio Jones. Your top leading receiver coming back is Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. So questions there. Do you kind of think that is going to have an effect on how they kind of start the season, perhaps on that, on the run they're going to have to go on? Because of course they have the Giants, and then they have those Bills we just saw on Thursday night in week 2.
Yeah, look, the reality is the Tennessee Titans are a run-centric offense, and if Derrick Henry is getting off, it mitigates any concerns about the wide receiver position. The other thing I would say to you, and Mike, you know this, look, A.J. Brown and both Julio Jones a year ago were in and out of the lineup, so it's not like they were there every week to be counted on. For me, the Titans still go as Derrick Henry goes, or as that run game goes, and as that defense goes. Losing Landry, to me, is a bigger concern than losing A.J. Brown, to be quite frank with you. But I say that to say as well, I still believe that Mike Vrabel has a culture there that carries, and it's physical football. It's running the football. It's getting after folks defensively, and I think they're going to be okay. I'm not someone who's panicking about who's in their wide receiver room at this point. My biggest question is if Derrick Henry is doing what Derrick Henry does, they're going to be fine offensively.
I definitely, don't have a ton of questions. Honestly, I think their wide receiver core is probably deeper this year than it was last year because you had Julio Jones, you had A.J. Brown, then you had Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, who kind of showed up. But then after that, you had a bunch of people that people really didn't know. This year, you've got Kyle Phillips, you've got Treylon Burks, you've got Robert Woods, you've got Racey McMath when he gets back healthy. You got potentially a Josh Gordon when he's on the practice squad right now for them. I mean, you've got a lot of different weapons. And also you have at the tight end position, Austin Hooper and Chig Okonkwo, who is a rookie out of Maryland. So they do have pieces. I think they're more talented in that position than anyone wants to give them credit for this year.
Yeah, but that's what we do here. I mean, when I talk about the media and fans, if we haven't seen it from a player yet, then we act as if that player can't do it. And I get it. So when you have a proven, you're always going to lean towards that proven. So, but again, they always say, there's a saying among coaches that, you got to start somewhere. And every great player got an opportunity at some point somewhere and at some time. So again, I'm not overly concerned about the Titans offense from a receiver standpoint. My question is, are they going to run the ball as effectively as they have in the past with Derrick Henry when he's healthy?
That definitely is going to be something to watch. Of course, with Roger Saffold gone, and now with Nicholas Petit-Ferrer taking over at the offensive tackle spot instead of what some thought would be Dylan Raditz. But yeah, definitely going to be interesting to watch that one. And of course, with that defense as well. Another note on the defense, they do get after the quarterback with just using their front, which is something similar that Buffalo does, which is a great advantage to have in NFL football. Another team that's able to get after the quarterback with their front four is the Indianapolis Colts, or they're going to hope to get after offenses with their front four. Of course, they added Ndakwe from the Las Vegas Raiders. They are hoping that Kwity Paye actually steps up a little bit more, and then also brought in Gus Bradley as the defensive coordinator this year to kind of bring a little bit of that Seattle influence to that defense. So, with the additions and with the different things going on, of course, Shaquille Leonard will be out the first game. Of course, back surgery, still kind of recovering. But, say their whole crew is there. How do you expect them to kind of change or mold and be a little bit different than they were last year?
You're talking about defensively?
Yes.
Or just overall?
Just defensively in terms of – because what I've heard is they're going to be more attacking this year as opposed to kind of, I guess, read and reacting type of team, which, I thought that was interesting that I heard that when I heard that.
Yeah, no, I think with Gus Bradley, I don't know that I would say I expect them to be attacking. I put that in air quotes. His defenses traditionally are more of, I hate cliches, but it is sort of that bend but don't break, make teams drive the field as opposed to give up the explosive plays. Um, I just tend to wonder if folks have kind of caught on to him a little bit when you look at where he's been his last few stops and how those units have performed relative to the talent that they had. So I don't know. I think losing Eberflus is, look, whenever you change coaches or coordinators, there is a transition period. And I believe that there is going to be one with the Colts defensively. The good thing is they have talent if everyone is healthy, as you pointed out. I think there's going to be a lot more pressure on the offense for them early on in the season to sort of carry the load. One of the great things about the way they are built is that if they are going to go through a transition period defensively, it helps to have a running game like they have with Jonathan Taylor so that you can shorten games and opponents are not getting as many offensive possessions, if that makes sense. So I'm not one that wants to sit here and kind of be down on their defense. I'm just taking more of a wait and see approach as it relates to this change that they made there.
Gotcha. And of course, the change offensively, their fifth quarterback in 5 years, Matt Ryan comes to town. Carson Wentz leaves and goes to the Commanders. So with what they have offensively, of course, Jonathan Taylor, the star running back, they have Michael Pittman Jr. But then outside of Michael Pittman Jr., Matt Ryan, and Jonathan Taylor, what else? It's a lot of question marks in terms of the skill position players. So, I mean, do you have some concerns there about their offense, or is it you kind of feel a little bit the same way like you do with the Titans when it comes to them?
I feel the same way. And here's the other thing I feel. I feel that Matt Ryan is an upgrade over any of those quarterbacks they've had since Andrew Luck. And that includes Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz. Matt Ryan is a damn good quarterback. And the thing that I love about Matt that people might not know is he is a guy who is going to hold people accountable. Like when he gets out on that practice field, he's not just letting stuff slide. He is going to hold everyone to a high standard. And he comes off, and he is a nice guy, and publicly and in press conferences, as a real genteel, polite guy. And he is all of that. But when it's time to get down to work, he gets down to work. And he holds people accountable. Doesn't matter who you are. And he will do that with the Colts, I believe. So, yeah, to me, this is a lot like Tennessee. I think as long as they can run the ball effectively, which we know they will with Jonathan Taylor, I believe Matt Ryan will be able to make more plays than his predecessors made at the position. And therefore, I think offensively they will be fine.
Okay. All right. Now, a team that's looking to kind of forge an identity offensively is the Jaguars. Of course, last year, the Urban Meyer experience, need I even say more? But,
no.
But going into this year, of course, they have Doug Peterson, a coach that actually has won a Super Bowl and actually done some things with some quarterbacks. Nick Foles and Carson Wentz come to mind. Now he's paired with Trevor Lawrence. They've added weapons, Zay Jones. They've got Zay Jones, Christian Kirk. They've added Ingram at tight end spot, which I think he has the potential to be the best tight end in the AFC South, if not better than that. They've got all these nice weapons, and of course, ETN is back to join with James Robinson. So, with this cast of characters, do you foresee him, kind of raising his level and bar to be better this year for this offense?
You're talking about Trevor?
Yes.
Oh, without a doubt. I think he is going to grow by leaps and bounds this year, in part because of all of the additions that they've made, in part because of what you said about Doug Peterson and what he has gotten out of quarterbacks in the past, including an MVP-type season from Carson Wentz. And more than anything, I think it's that now the dysfunction is gone. and it's about football and not all this other stuff. So the other thing I like about the Jags and Trevor's expected improvement, is that I think defensively they are going to be better. And look, we always say football is a complementary game, and it does take all three phases. The Jags were messed up all around last year, but they have spent more money the last two free agent periods than anyone. They have had high draft picks the last 2 years. I do think that that Trayvon Walker is going to be that guy for them in terms of his versatility. And one of the things they liked about him in the draft, and the reason they went with him over Hutchinson, is that he can play anywhere along that line in sub packages, whereas Aiden Hutchinson is viewed as strictly an edge guy. So I've said this about the Jags, and I will say it again. I think by the last month of the season or so, they are a team that people aren't going to want to play. I believe that they are going to get better and better. I don't expect them to come out of the gate strong just because of the transition period. But I believe with all of that talent, with good coaching, that by December, January, they're going to be a team no one wants to play.
Well, actually, I'll probably surprise you, but I have them getting 8 wins this year, to be honest.
That didn't surprise me. I don't think I was bold enough to go that bold, but I had them being one of the teams that has one of the largest net increases in victories this year over last year. I think, look, there's something to be said, to use this cliche about having an adult in the room. And Doug Peterson is an adult. He knows how to connect with his players. He has a proven track record in terms of if you listen, if you work, here's what can happen. So, yeah, I really think the Jags are on the right path.
Yeah, me as well. Me as well. Of course, Titans fans and other teams in the division don't want to hear that, but that is true. They are on the way. They can't be bad forever. And another team that can't be bad forever is the Houston Texans. Of course, Lovie Smith takes over for David Culley. I'm still irritated about that situation, but we have to move forward. So Lovie Smith gets his chance again to be the head coach. And of course, with his teams and defensively, they always like to make impact there. Turnovers, big splash plays there. He's got Derek Stingley Jr. He's got Petrie at safety. Guys. Now, my thinking is that, of course, he's going to make some splash plays or set up some splash plays with those pieces as well. Am I wrong to think that, or am I forgetting somebody like maybe a Grenard up front or a Jerry Hughes, who's a wily veteran at defensive end?
Yeah, look, when I met with Lovie this offseason, his whole thing is about defensively, they want to try and create 3 takeaways per game, which is kind of insane when you think about it, because what does that add up to?
That's 3 times 17, 51.
Yeah, I failed at math, so it's a hell of a lot of takeaways. And they believe that if they can get those takeaways, that offensively they're going to lean on the run game and ask, Davis not to make a lot of mistakes and to have ball security. So, look, I know a lot of coaches on that staff, and I'm pulling for that staff because I think Lovie wants to do it the right way. And even more than that, I think Lovie understands the importance of giving opportunities to minority coaches who have earned those opportunities. And for those reasons alone, I'm pulling for the Texans to do well in this climate in the NFL where so many black coaches are being discriminated against. So, look, I think they upgraded their offensive line this offseason. I'm still curious about do they have an actual bell cow running back? Because Pep Hamilton, their offensive coordinator, wants to lean on that running game. He wants it to be everything, the play action to be built around that running game. And I just need to know that they have a bell cow guy, and I don't know that at this point. So they really like Nico Collins on the outside. He showed flashes last year at being a playmaker. So they re-signed Brandon Cook
Cooks.
So they feel good about that. So I'm not as down on the Texans as everyone else is, but I say that with full disclosure that I'm really pulling for them. So maybe I see a silver lining more than other people do.
Well, I hear you there. Now I will say that Dameon Pierce is a guy that they're high on in terms of a running back. But like I talked to somebody that actually covers them, and he said, "Hey, he's been doing this against guys that are trying to earn a job. Let's see if he does this against guys that already had a job." So I'm keeping that in mind.
Yeah, he's got to prove it. That's what I'm saying. They don't have an established bell cow. I think they were I know they were hoping initially that Marlon Mack would regain his form from a couple of years ago, which obviously he did not. Following that injury, he's just never been the same. So again, I need someone to show me that they can do it on a full-time basis and be that bell cow guy. So because I know what kind of offense Pep wants to run, I know what his philosophy is, and if they can play that way, it's only going to help that defense.
Definitely, and Davis Mills, he's definitely the big question mark there at quarterback, because if he doesn't do well this year, then they more than likely will be drafting his replacement next year. So he's kind of on the clock too.
Yeah, he is, but it's legitimate like. They like him, and they believe that he can be that guy. And the thing they like about him more than anything right now is that when he did have bad performances last year, he always bounced back with a good game, which showed them, like they said, even going back to training camp, that rookie year, there was one practice, I think he threw like 5 picks, and they were like, oh shit, I'm sorry, well, what do we have here? And then the next practice, he comes back and he lights it up. And that was the first indication to them that we got a guy who's a fighter, and who hopefully is going to learn from his mistakes. So he has a couple of bad games in the regular season, and what does he do? He bounces back. And then they finished strong down the stretch last year. So again, I'm full disclosure here. I know many of these guys. I'm rooting for these guys. So I hope they do better than people think.
We're definitely going to be watching and seeing. Of course, last time you were on.
I lost you there, Mike.
Can you hear me?
Did you mute yourself?
No, sir. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hold on here. I lost you.
Okay. There you go.
Now, somehow it went to, yeah.
Yeah, interesting indeed. Technology, you gotta love it. Well, I did have that was all the questions I really had about the AFC South. Of course, I do since the last time you were on, I have added something to the show, which is a game. I have 5 questions. And I've got 2 answers for you. So, are you ready for the game?
So the game is you have 5 questions.
And I got 2 answers I'm going to give you. You got to pick one.
Okay. All right, let's give it a go.
All right. Titans or Colts? If you had to pick now, who would you have to win the division?
I said prior to the Landry injury, Titans, but I think now I'll probably go Colts.
Okay. All right. Brandon Cooks or Michael Pittman Jr.? Which one do you think is the best wide receiver in the AFC South?
If we're factoring in health, I'd have to go Pittman.
Okay. All right. A few Colts fans will definitely be very, very happy to hear that.
Look, what do they say? The best ability is availability. So
that's right.
Can you depend? Who can you depend on more to be there every Sunday?
That's right. Now, Evan Ingram or Austin Hooper? Both of these tight ends definitely didn't have the greatest times at their previous locations. They had some ups and downs. But which one do you think has a bounce back season this year more than which one do you think has a bounce back season?
Good question. Let's go Ingram. I don't have a reason. So I'm flipping a coin.
I hear you there. I think Ingram as well, because I mean, honestly, looking at Trevor Lawrence back, best weapon's probably going to be the tight end.
Yeah, he's got a lot of outs, so and he's got another tight end there that he developed a relationship with last year before he got hurt. So,
yep, Dan Arnold.
Yeah, so we'll see.
All right. All right. Jonathan Taylor or Derrick Henry? Which one do you think has more yards this year?
Oh, more yards this year. Man, I know Derrick is motivated like heck to show he's still that guy. But I'm going to say Henry. I'm going to say Taylor. Younger, fresher, coming off the season that he had, with a quarterback now who can make plays in the pass game as well. I think it's going to open up even more for him. So I'm going to say Taylor.
Okay. All right.
That's like asking me cake or ice cream, man. My answer to that one would be both. So I would be
right. It's a tough question, definitely. And the last one, if you had to pick one defense, the Colts defense or the Titans defense, which one are you taking?
I'm going to stay with the Titans defense. I know Landry's out, but I just love their mindset, man. The way that they play, the physicality that they play with, the guys up front. There's a certain standard that they live by. And so I think I'm a big fan of how they play. So I'm going to go Tennessee.
All right, and hopefully they play well again this year. And the big fella up front, Jeffrey Simmons, it's time to get the bag for him, basically.
Oh, absolutely.
We did have one question from the inbox from Kyle T. Mosley. What's going on, Kyle? What HBCU rookies in the NFL do you like?
Tell Kyle, I don't know. I haven't studied it closely, man. We're just getting to week one.
Yeah, that's true. We are.
Yeah,
but there's some from Southern. I think there's one from Southern. I think I have to do a little bit more studying myself, to be honest.
There's another one too. There's another one too that I'm drawing a blank on right now. If you had told me beforehand you were going to ask me that, I could have looked it up real quick.
Honestly, I didn't know that question was coming.
So tell Kyle I don't want to speak wrong, so I'm not going to speak on it. I've got to do a little more research on it, so I don't know.
Gotcha. Hey, I got to do more research myself, to be honest. But that's the end of the question. The game at the end of the show. I want to thank you again.
Tell Kyle he can answer that question better than we can.
All right, he definitely can. He does his research.
I know he does. That's what I'm saying.
All right. Well, we have reached the end of the show, and I want to thank you for coming on and giving me some of your time. I appreciate it. I did read the article you did after the game, which I thought was very, very good in terms of breaking down everything and the changes in terms of the Bills as well. It's really, really good.
I appreciate it, man. I don't know what I wrote. It was late. I was tired. So sometimes they say you just got to get it done and move on.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on again. If you want to tell everyone anything you're working on or whatever like that.
I got nothing. I'll be up in Seattle Monday night watching Russell's return to Seattle and writing something after that. That's really all that's on the schedule for right now.
All right. Well, I thank you again for coming on. I thank everyone for tuning in. You've been tuned in to Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton. We're out.
All right, Mike. I appreciate you, man.